Namaste. In this video, we'll look at a project where we will try to predict whether a person's loan application should be accepted or not. So in this video, part 1, we will look at some basic data wrangling, some outlier removal, then we will use a column transform and pipeline to streamline the entire process, and then we'll use a randomized search to find an optimal set of parameters. And instead of just doing it for one classifier or one estimator, we will automate this process for multiple classifiers, and then we will plot the precision recall curve to see how well a model is doing, and then we'll also plot a learning curve which we will use for checking of any case of underfitting or overfitting, or basically the bias variance trade-off. In the part 2, we will rectify the existing model that we have built in this part 1 based on the inferences from the learning curve, and we'll try to make a better model. So I've imported all the necessary libraries, and this is the data set. The target variable is the loan status, which is 1 or 0. 1 means the loan was approved, 0 means not. Okay, now we will check whether we have any duplicate records in the data using df.duplicated, and this will basically give us a series of trues and falses. Okay, and if I check the documentation, it says that keep first, last, or false. So default is first. So what will happen is, by default it is first, so it will mark all the duplicates as true except for the first occurrence. So the first occurrence will be kept and all the others will be set to trues. All the duplicate values will be set to trues. Okay, so this is the set of records which are duplicated. Okay, so we need to get rid of this. Now just to make sure that these are actually duplicated, we'll check for one of these people. So 15975, so I'm checking for some of his features, and we find that number 6464 and 15975, these two have the same set of features. Now I believe it is highly unlikely for both of them, for these to be two different people who happen to have the same set of features. So I'll consider them to be duplicated and remove one of them. So originally we have 32581 records, and after dropping the duplicates using drop duplicates, we have 32416 records. So we are basically getting rid of 165 records here. Now we will segregate the data into a training data and a testing data. So we'll be using this X test and Y test only at the very end to check our model, and we'll be doing all the data analysis and the transformations on the X and Y. So this X and Y are my training data. So originally in the entire dataset, we have 78% of the records as zeros and 22% as ones. So what does this stratify parameter do is that it will make sure that the distribution is preserved in both the training Y and the testing Y. Okay, so we see both are 78 and 21, 22 and 78 and 22%. So the distribution is preserved. Okay, so now let us see the number of missing values. So we see that person employment length has 2.8% missing values, and loan interest rate has 9.6% missing values, and both of them are numerical values. Okay, so no categorical column has a missing value in our data set. So if I just see what will happen if I drop all the missing values, like by doing drop NA, we see that we are dropping almost 12% of the entire data set, which is not ideal. So we will not do that. We will not drop the records. We'll modify those by filling up the missing values. Now we see that one of the columns is loan percent income, and this is basically nothing but the loan amount divided by the person's income. Okay, so this is not adding any new information to our dataset, this particular column. So we will drop this particular column. And now if I check the unique values in each column, so what we find is person age has 58 unique values, income has 3680, and the person home ownership has 4 unique values. So these are the distributions, and you can check for others as well. Now if we look at the x.describe, we see that person age, the maximum value is 144, and the person employment length maximum is 123. So these two are absurd values kind of. So we need to handle these records. First of all, these are the numerical columns. So we'll make a note of that. And this is a histogram of all the numerical columns. We see that almost all of the records are around 60 to 65 maximum, and only a few records go until the age of 140. And similarly for person employment length as well. So we'll rectify this. We'll see how many records have person age of greater than 80, because I'll assume that a person over the age of 80 will not usually apply for a loan, so that I'll just remove them from my dataset so that my model is able to generalize better on the age range that is most likely to apply for a loan. Okay, so I find 8 records which have greater than 80 years of age, so I'll just remove them here. So my condition is x of person age should be less than 80. Okay, now percentage employment length, since I'm assuming that 80 is the cutoff age, and usually 14 is the age where a person is legally allowed to work. So I'm assuming that any person who has greater than 66 years of work experience, they should be removed from the dataset as well. So we find two such records of 123 and 123 years. So these two are potentially miscalculations. Okay, so I'll just remove them as well. And another way to check is that person age should be less than person employment length plus 14. So we again get back only these two records. So this is also kind of a check of whether some person has been working since they were underage or not. So we can use this as an analysis as well. So here we will just remove those records. So I'm saying person employment length should be less than 66, or the person employment length should be a NaN value. Because if I only pass in this particular condition, what will happen is it will also drop the missing values. And we do not want that. We also want to keep the missing values for now. So I'll put this all condition. Now, since we have only dropped the records from the X dataset, that is a feature vector X, the Y doesn't know, the corresponding Ys do not know that some of the X's have been removed or deleted. So we need to pass this here. Okay, and these are the categorical columns now. And now comes the column transformer. Now, on the numerical columns, as we have seen before, we have only two columns with missing values, and both of them are numerical. So we need to handle them. Now, how do we do that? Well, we'll pass in a pipeline into this column transformer. And in this column transformer and in this pipeline, we will pass in two successive steps. First will be an iterative imputer, and the second will be a standard scaler. So it will first impute all the missing values and then scale those missing and scale all of the entire columns. Okay, of each numerical column. And for the categorical column, since we do not have any missing value, we'll simply just one hot encode them. Now comes the randomized search CV. So what we'll do is, for passing to the param distributions, so we'll be passing a grid basically of the various combinations that we want to try out. So this grid is basically a dictionary. Okay, and the keys of this dictionary are the classifiers themselves. So random forest classifier and LGBM classifier, light GBM, and the values of these keys, they are basically, so this is the key, this is the value of that particular key of random forest classifier, and this value is the different set of parameters, hyperparameters that we want to check. Similarly for light GBM as well, and we can add more classifiers as well if we want, but I'll just go with two right now. And how do we extract information from this dictionary? Well, we can simply do CLF comma for each classifier and parameter grid in grid.items. Dot items will basically iterate over each element in this dictionary and segregate into key value pairs. Okay, so basically print classifier, print parameters, so it is printing random forest classifier and then printing the corresponding value of that. Okay, similarly for light GBM as well. So now I'm defining two empty containers. One is a data frame and another is a dictionary. Now we'll see in a moment what are these two. First of all, for each classifier and parameter in grid.items, I'll make a pipeline, final pipeline, where the first step will be the column transformer, and then the next step is the classifier. So this CLF is this classifier of random forest and the LGBM. Okay. Now in this randomized search CV, I'll be passing the estimator as the pipeline pipe, this entire pipe, and the param distribution as this param, which is this particular dictionary. Okay, and scoring is accuracy, and I want 4 different permutations out of the ones that I've specified here. So randomly 4 will be chosen and models will be made on them. Then I'll fit the model on gs.fit, and then this all result, this variable will hold the gs, the grid search, or I should have named it randomized search, but I named it grid search, the gs.cv results. So this will basically hold all the information about the models that were built of the different permutations. And now from this all result data frame, I'm taking parameters, params and mean test score, these particular columns, these 2 columns, and saving it into a data frame called temp. Okay, and now to extract the algorithm name, so basically what I'm doing is I'm stringifying the classifier name and then splitting on the opening parenthesis and extracting the 0th part. So basically this is the classifier CLF. Okay, so I'm stringifying it and then I'm segregating, splitting on the opening parenthesis and then extracting the 0th part. So this name, so because of I want this name here, right, for the algorithm. So the temp of algo name is the algorithm name. And so basically now in the first iteration for the first for loop, it will do for random forest, and in the second iteration it will do for LGBM. So we want to append these 2 data frames together, right? So I'll do a pd.concat and full data frame. Initially it is empty, but it will be filled after each iteration, and I'll be appending the current temp dataset to this full df. Okay, and this best algos dictionary, this will hold the best pipeline, this the best estimator for each of those estimators. That is for random forest, it will hold the best estimator that it found using the randomized search CV. Okay, and okay, that is it. So what happens is, if we sort the full data frame by the mean test score, we find that random forest did the best job, and these are the parameters which were responsible for this best performance. And if we check what are those values, we can do a .ilog 0,0. So we'll get back this particular record of 0,0. So 400 estimators, and the estimator and I didn't talk about this. So what is this basically is that in this iterative imputer, we can specify an estimator. So by default, it is none. So none means it is a Bayesian ridge. Okay, but we can specify a linear regression or random forest or any other kind of regressor. So I'll try different regressors here as well. So how do we enter into this? Well, first of all, we need to go into the column transformer, because this is the pipeline, this pipe. So we first need to go into the call TF column transformer, and then once we are into the column transformer, we need to go into the num pipe, right? So once you enter the num pipe, then into the num pipe, we need to go into the impute step. Once you go into the impute, now you're into the iterative imputer, and now you can use the estimator parameter name to test different types of regressors. So we find that the random forest regressor was the best one out of all of the 3 ones. And so the best algos, we know that random forest was the best classifier. So best algos of random forest classifier will give us the pipeline object that was found to be the best one. So we see 400, and random forest regressor was the hyperparameters that were found to be the best ones. And now we'll fit on the entire dataset this BE object that we saved here, BE best estimator, and then we'll do the predictions, we'll make the confusion matrix, and this is just a visually more appealing way of presenting the confusion matrix. Now the classification report, we see that we had an accuracy of 92%, which we see from here as well, and the recall was 0.69. Okay, so now let us make the precision recall curve. So precision recall curve, the higher the value closer to 1, the better the model. So our model's area under the curve of this precision recall curve is 0.87. which is good enough because the baseline model is only 0.22. And how to calculate the baseline value? It is basically the fraction of the positive samples in the data. So in the y-test, the ones are the positive samples, so I'm taking the sum of them to find the total number of positive samples, dividing it by the length of the entire test dataset to find the baseline model of 0.22. So in comparison to this baseline model, our model is performing very well. But now let us look at the learning curve. The learning curve suggests that the training accuracy is close to 1, or almost exactly 1, for each of the training sample sizes that we have taken, while the validation accuracy or the testing accuracy is not very convincing, right? It is stagnating at 0.92 finally. So this gap is pretty high. So this is indicative of overfitting. So basically we are overfitting on the training dataset, which is not a good sign. So how do we check for overfitting? Well, the training accuracy is high. So we see that the training accuracy is high, which means the model is fitting very closely to the training data. And the validation or the testing accuracy is very low. Not very low, but it is low in comparison to the training set, to the training accuracy. So this is indicative of high variance. This means that the model is not able to generalize well onto the testing data. And one more way to check for high variance is by looking at the big gap between the training and validation curves. So these two curves have a big difference between them. So this is also indicative of a high variance. And overfitting basically makes a very complex model which learns everything, even the noise in the dataset, in the training dataset, which is undesirable. So basically, this is what it is. When we overfit on the training data, we are basically learning every single thing from the dataset, as this blue curve suggests, which is not ideal, to be honest. We need something that can model the variation in the data, that can learn from the data very well. In the part 1, we saw that a model was overfitting on the training dataset, right? And in this part 2, we will try to rectify that thing. So one remedial measure is that add more training samples. So this basically will help the model to learn better, and this is not always possible to add more training samples because maybe data is at a premium and you have only what you have. So we'll have to try some other measures. So if you're only working with the data at hand, you can try to make a simpler model, because you're basically making a very complex model like this. So you need to make a model that generalizes well onto the data. So how do we reduce the complexity? Well, we can try to reduce the number of features. Maybe we are making a model with too many features, which is complicating things. Or we can try increasing the regularization or the lambda parameter. Or we can try to prune the decision trees. So here we'll only work with random forest classifier, although you can go for other estimators as well. And to prune the decision trees, I'll use a max depth of 5, 9, 13 and minimum sample split of 4, 6, 8 and estimators of 100, 200, 300. Okay, and I'll make a model out of the randomized search CV. I'll make the 4 random models, and I find that the final result is that, the best model is the one which has max depth of 13 and minimum sample split of 4. Okay, and the impute and the estimator and the iterative imputer estimator is linear regression. So this is the best set of parameters that we have found. Now we will fit it on the entire data set again, and let us see the results. Now if you recall that our recall value in the previous model in part 1 was 0.69, and we have managed to increase that to 0.74 here, although marginally, but we have managed to increase it, and we have reduced the precision of the positive class in the process, but we are making a more general model which is less prone to overfitting. So we have to make some trade-offs there, and the overall accuracy is 0.91. Before it was 0.92, so we aren't losing much on that front. Now the precision recall curve, it was 0.87, and in this one we have 0.86. After pruning the trees, And now if we make the learning curves, we find that the model is doing a lot better, right? Because the training accuracy is reducing as we increase the training size, which means that the model is finding it harder to fit exactly to the training samples like this. So the model is not able to fit exactly to the training data, which is a good sign. And the gap between these two, validation and the training accuracy, is also reducing, which is indicative of lowering of the variance, which is again what we want. And you see, there's still scope for improvement, as if we try to increase the number of samples, maybe we will saturate these two, maybe these two curves will saturate very close to one another, and that is the ideal scenario, where the two curves are very close to one another and the accuracy is still very high. But if we don't have enough data, if we don't have extra data, then we can try to do some extra hyperparameter optimizations to reduce this gap further, or we can try a different algorithm altogether.